Ethan, you're shaking again.
I'm fine.
You're not. Come here.
She pulled me close, and I let her, because she was the only person in the world I trusted enough to fall apart in front of. My wife. The woman who proposed to me 88 times before I finally said yes. The woman who sent 12 military helicopters just to walk me down the aisle. Sounds like a fairy tale, right? Rich heir marries the perfect woman, lives happily ever after. Except, this is my second life. In my first one, I was betrayed by the two people I loved most, locked in a room, left to die. And the man who made it all happen? I'm the one who brought him into our lives. So, how did I end up here? Holding the only woman who ever truly loved me, when a year ago, I was a dead man. Let me start from the beginning. I died at 23. My older sister Amelia signed away my inheritance. My younger sister Zoe locked me in a room for 6 months. And the man who made it all happen, Caleb, a nobody I pulled out of poverty and put through college, he took everything. My money, my home, my family. And when there was nothing left to take, they let me die. But then I woke up, 5 years in the past, in my old bedroom, the same sunlight hitting the same curtains, the same phone buzzing on the nightstand. I was 18 again. Most people would cry, break down, thank God for a second chance and promise to be a better person. I wasn't most people, not anymore. In my first life, I hesitated. I tried to keep the peace. I begged them to love me. It killed me. This time, I moved first. I sat up in bed and made 3 calls before my feet touched the floor. Call 1, my grandfather, the only person who ever loved me without conditions. He'd been trying to arrange a marriage for me with Chloe Vance, the daughter of a powerful military family. For years, I ignored him. I was too obsessed with my sisters to even consider another woman. Chloe had proposed to me 88 times, and I rejected her every single time. What an idiot I was. This time, when grandfather picked up, I said 3 words, I'll marry Chloe. The old man went quiet for a full 5 seconds. Then he laughed so hard I thought he'd have a heart attack. He told me Chloe would be thrilled, that the Vance women are famous for their loyalty, that he could finally rest easy knowing someone would be by my side. His voice cracked at the end. He said he was getting old, and all he ever wanted was for me not to be alone. In my last life, he died before the year was over. I won't let that happen again. Call 2, my lawyer. I had the will quietly changed. If anything happened to me, everything goes to grandfather and Chloe. Amelia and Zoe get nothing, not a single cent. And I made sure the document was locked in a vault they couldn't touch. Call 3, a security company. I had cameras installed in every room of the mansion before lunch. Hidden, untraceable, recording 24/7. If they were going to betray me again, this time, I'd have proof. By noon, I was done. 3 calls, 3 moves. The game was already different. And then my phone buzzed. A message from a number I hadn't saved yet. It was Chloe. Grandfather must have told her immediately.
Ethan, is it true? You said yes? I don't want you to feel pressured. If this is just to make your grandfather happy, you can tell me. I'd rather wait another 88 times than have you agree for the wrong reason.
88 proposals, and even now she was giving me an out. Something in my chest tightened, not pain. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. It's not for him, Chloe. It's for me.
Then I'll make sure you never regret it.
She hung up before I could respond. Probably didn't want me to hear her voice shaking. She said she'd been waiting since we were kids. I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet, but I would. 3 calls, 1 morning, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt like I was in control. The next few days were exactly how I remembered them. Caleb moved through the mansion like he owned it. My study, my kitchen, my couch, and my 2 sisters, the women my grandfather adopted from an orphanage and raised as family, treated him like he was the most important person in the house. More important than me. Now let me explain something. Amelia, my older sister, she's the smart one, top of her class. Ran a division at Sterling Court by 25. Cold, logical, always thinking 3 moves ahead. But she had one weakness, guilt. She never forgot where she came from. The orphanage, the hunger, the feeling of being nobody. And Caleb, he knew exactly how to use that. Zoe, my younger sister, she's the opposite. Loud, impulsive, says whatever she feels. She used to be my fiercest protector, used to be. Her weakness? She needs to feel needed. She needs someone to save. And Caleb made himself the perfect victim for her to rescue. I came home one evening and found Caleb sitting at my desk, in my study, wearing the vintage watch my grandfather gave me for my 16th birthday. Amelia and Zoe were there. Amelia was reviewing some documents. Zoe was sitting cross-legged on my reading chair, scrolling through her phone, like it was their room, like I didn't exist. "Get out of my study. You have 5 minutes." They all looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Zoe was the first to react. She rolled her eyes and told me to stop being a child, that Caleb needed a workspace and I should learn to share. Amelia didn't even look up from her papers. She just said, "He's using it while you're out. It's not a big deal." The old me would have argued, raised his voice, begged them to see his side, and eventually backed down. But that version of me died in a locked room 6 months into a captivity that lasted until his heart stopped beating. I didn't argue. I pulled out my phone and called the house staff. "Remove everything that isn't mine from this study. You have 5 minutes. 3 staff members walked in, started packing Caleb's things. Caleb jumped up from my chair, his face twisted in confusion. Zoe shot to her feet. She got in my face and shouted, "Who do you think you are? He was just sitting here." The owner of this house. She didn't have an answer for that, because it was true. Grandfather bought this mansion for me. They lived here because I let them. That had always been true. I just never enforced it before. Amelia finally looked up. Something cold flickered behind her eyes. She said nothing, just took Caleb by the arm and walked out. That was the moment I knew. She was going to make me pay for this. She just hadn't decided how yet, but Caleb decided first. The next morning, I checked the hidden cameras, and there it was. Crystal clear footage from the hallway. Caleb pulling Zoe aside the night before, whispering to her with tears in his eyes, telling her that I had threatened him privately, that I told him, "I'll have you thrown back to your village where you belong." I never said that, not a single word of it, but Caleb knew exactly what button to press. Zoe was an orphan too. She knew what it felt like to be told she didn't belong somewhere, and Caleb aimed that fear straight at her heart. By noon, Amelia confronted me. She stood in the doorway of my room, arms crossed, voice like a blade. She said, "You don't get to threaten people just because you were born rich. We all earned our place here." I could see Zoe standing behind her, arms folded, nodding. In my last life, I would have panicked. I would have sworn I never said it. I would have begged them to believe me. But arguing with people who've already decided you're guilty is just performing for an empty courtroom. So I said nothing. I let them think they won. And that night, I watched the footage again. Caleb, crying on camera. Then the second he turned the corner away from Zoe, a smirk. A full, satisfied smirk. I saved the file, and I waited. Now here's where it gets interesting. In my last life, I was a design major. My senior thesis was a custom suit, a design I spent months perfecting. It was the best thing I ever created, and Caleb stole it, submitted it as his own, won the award, wore the suit, and I had zero proof it was ever mine. This time, I had proof before he even saw the design. I submitted my original sketches to one of the most respected design houses in the world, with timestamps, official correspondence, and a commissioned production order. The paper trail was bulletproof. Then I left the designs on Zoe's laptop, right where she'd show Caleb, right where he'd get inspired. He took the bait in 3 days, submitted my design as his senior project, walked around campus like a genius, and I waited. The scandal broke exactly how I remembered. The school accused me of plagiarism. My name was trending online, and my 2 sisters, the women who were supposed to protect me, they went public defending Caleb. Amelia used her connections to have my response posts removed from social media. Zoe went on record calling me, and I quote, "jealous and pathetic." I expected every bit of it, so I logged into my verified account, the one grandfather had set up when I agreed to the marriage, officially verified as the sole heir to the sterling fortune, and I posted everything. The original sketches, the timestamps, the correspondence with the design house from 3 months before Caleb ever touched a pencil. One tweet, one truth, undeniable. The internet flipped in under an hour. Caleb was destroyed. And then Amelia called. She spoke calmly, like she was negotiating a business deal. She said, "Delete the post. Caleb's reputation can't survive this. You don't need the credit. You're a sterling. He's got nothing." And that's exactly why I don't need to protect a thief. I hung up, didn't delete anything. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was Chloe.
I saw everything online. Do you need me to step in? My family's legal team can shut this down in a day.
No, this one's mine.
Okay, Ethan?
Yeah?
I'm proud of you.
She didn't push, didn't insist, didn't try to fight my battle for me. She just believed in me. Do you have any idea how long it had been since someone just believed in me? I put the phone down, and for a second, my hands were shaking. Not from anger, I just wasn't used to it. After the plagiarism scandal, Amelia and Zoe stopped talking to me. In my last life, that silence would have lasted 1 day before I came crawling back, apologizing for things I didn't do, just to hear their voices again. This time, I used the silence to pack. I sold the mansion, listed it on a Monday, had a buyer by Wednesday. Beverly Hills property moves fast when you price it right. The handover date? New Year's Eve. The same day both weddings would happen, mine and theirs. Because Caleb, now publicly humiliated and desperate, had done exactly what he did in my last life. He convinced both sisters to marry him. Some kind of commitment ceremony to prove they were loyal, to prove he was still worth something. And they agreed. Even after everything, they agreed. I spent my last night at the mansion burning things. Their gifts, the photos, a scarf Amelia knitted for my 15th birthday, a toy car Zoe won for me at a carnival when we were 12. I held that car in my hand for a long time. These things used to mean everything to me. I threw it in the fire and watched the paint bubble. Then, I had the landscaping crew come in and rip out the magnolia tree in the front yard, the one we planted together the day they first arrived. I was 10. They were 11 and 8. We put it in the ground with our bare hands, and Grandfather took a photo of all three of us covered in dirt, grinning like idiots. The tree came out in about 10 minutes, roots and all. Funny how something that took years to grow can be ripped out so fast. Zoe showed up just as the crew was loading the tree onto a truck. She stared at the hole in the ground, then at me. She said, "The magnolia, where is it?" Then she caught herself and shrugged. Whatever, Caleb doesn't like magnolias anyway. She turned it into something about Caleb. Even the destruction of our childhood memory, she made about him. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to save. The house is sold, Zoe. New owner takes possession on New Year's Eve. You should start packing. She laughed, said I was bluffing. I didn't argue. She'd find out soon enough. New Year's Eve arrived. I came downstairs with one suitcase. Simple clothes, nothing fancy. And there they were, both of them in wedding gowns. Amelia in something sleek and white. Zoe in something wild and flowing. Beautiful, both of them. And between them, Caleb, wearing a bespoke suit. My suit. The design he stole. Tailored to fit him like it was always his. Some people have no shame. They saw my suitcase and froze. Amelia spoke first. She asked, "Where are you going?" "To my wedding." Zoe laughed. She told me to stop the act, that I was just trying to guilt them into calling off their ceremony. Amelia studied me with those cold, calculating eyes. She said, "If you want to come back, just say so. We can discuss terms." Terms. Like I was a business acquisition. I have my own bride, my own venue, my own life. None of it includes any of you. They didn't believe me. They couldn't. In their minds, I had spent my entire life orbiting them. The idea that I had actually moved on was unthinkable. That's the thing about arrogance. It doesn't just blind you to other people. It blinds you to the possibility that other people can live without you. Then, the sky opened up. The sound hit first. A deep, rhythmic thunder that rattled the windows. Then the shadows. Helicopter after helicopter after helicopter, dropping over the tree line like a military operation. Because it was a military operation. 12 helicopters, all bearing the Vance family crest. They landed on the front lawn in perfect formation, and the rotors kicked up so much wind that Zoe's veil flew right off her head. 2 squads of soldiers in full dress uniform stepped out, formed ranks, saluted, and one of them announced, "By order of Miss Chloe Vance, we are here to escort the groom, Mr. Ethan Sterling, to the wedding." No one moved. No one spoke. Amelia's mouth was slightly open. The first time in my life I'd ever seen her genuinely shocked. Zoe looked like she'd been slapped. And Caleb? Caleb stepped in front of them, his voice cracking with that perfect fake tremble. He said, "Don't fall for it. Those are actors. He hired them to ruin our day. He's just jealous." And they believed him. Because the alternative, that I had actually married into the most powerful military family in the country, meant that everything they'd done to me was an even bigger mistake than they'd already feared. People will believe a comfortable lie over a painful truth. Every time. I stepped into the helicopter, didn't wave, didn't look back, and as we lifted off, I watched the mansion, my childhood home, shrink below me. The hole where the magnolia tree used to be was visible from the air, a small, dark circle in the middle of a perfect green lawn. 2 hours later, I was standing in the grand ballroom of the Pinnacle Estates. Crystal fountain, fresh flowers, soft music, and I was wearing the suit, my suit, the one I designed. Every stitch, every button, exactly how I imagined it. Caleb was wearing the copy, I was wearing the original, and then she walked in. Chloe Vance. Her gown was layered tulle with hand-embroidered roses. An antique tiara sat on her head like it had been waiting for her since it was made. She moved like she was commanding a room of 1,000 people. Except right now, I was the only person in the world she was looking at. There was sweat on her forehead. She had rushed to get here, I could tell.
I'm sorry I'm late. I had something to take care of first.
You're here. That's all I care about. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small brooch. I'd spent 3 days choosing it. Nothing too flashy, just something that said, I thought about you. This is for you. I know it's not much, but I
love it. I love anything that comes from you.
The ceremony was small. Grandfather sat in the front row, beaming so hard I thought his face would crack. Chloe's parents sat across from him, equally proud. No crowd, no live stream, no spectacle, just us. And for the first time since I was reborn, I felt like I was actually alive. Not surviving, not planning, not watching over my shoulder, living. Meanwhile, at the Pinnacle Estate's smaller venue next door, Caleb and my sisters were having their ceremony. The live stream chat was tearing Caleb apart. The sisters were distracted, still thinking about the helicopters, still wondering if maybe, just maybe, I had been telling the truth. Their wedding felt like a funeral, and they hadn't even realized yet that the mansion they were planning to go home to, it wasn't theirs anymore. We moved to the military base, a small 2-bedroom house with thin walls and a view of the training grounds. It was nothing like the mansion. No marble floors, no chandeliers, no staff. It was perfect. Chloe would leave early for training and come back at lunch with food she'd personally picked from the mess hall. Always spicy, because she'd somehow figured out I loved spicy food without me ever telling her. She'd watch me eat with this serious expression, like she was conducting a military evaluation of my chopstick technique.
Slow down. No one's going to take it from you.
You say that every day.
Because every day, you eat like it's your last meal.
She didn't know how right she was. In my last life, it almost always was. But I didn't say that. I just slowed down, and she smiled. We visited grandfather. He looked strong, stronger than I remembered him at this point in my last life. He teased me for clinging to Chloe's arm. She teased him back. They got along like they'd known each other for years, but I couldn't relax. Because in my last life, he died around this time. Sudden heart attack. No warning. I made him do a full cardiac workup, every test they had. The results came back clean. Heart function, normal. Arteries, clear. Blood pressure, perfect. I stared at the report for a long time. If his heart was healthy, then what killed him in my last life? I didn't have the answer yet, but the question wouldn't leave me alone. That evening, we walked back through the base, sycamore trees lining the path, sunlight cutting through the leaves, recruits saluting me with a sharp, "Afternoon, sir," every 30 seconds. I turned red every single time. Chloe found it hilarious. That night, I finally asked her the question I'd been holding since our first phone call. Chloe, why 88 proposals? We barely knew each other. Weren't you afraid I was just a spoiled brat who'd never appreciate you?
Think carefully, Ethan. Have we really never met before?
What?
You don't remember, do you? I was 10. My parents had just died. I was in the hospital, not just for grief. I had a condition that made me temporarily deaf. Everything was silent. The whole world just went quiet, and I wanted it to stay quiet. I didn't want to hear anything ever again.
She paused. Her eyes drifted somewhere far away.
And then this boy showed up. Skinny, messy hair, also sick. Some kind of fever. He had 2 bodyguards following him everywhere, but he kept sneaking away from them to find me. Every single day, he'd sit next to me and try to talk, but I couldn't hear him. So he started drawing little cartoons, silly stories with stick figures and speech bubbles. He filled 3 whole sketchbooks. He's the reason I wanted to hear again, because I wanted to know what his voice sounded like.
My eyes were burning. I remembered now. Not clearly. My fever had clouded those memories for years, but I remembered the feeling of not being alone, of someone sitting next to me in silence because silence was all I had to give. That was you?
That was me. And when I recovered, I wanted to say goodbye properly, but my family sent me overseas before I could. I've been looking for that boy ever since. And then Grandfather Sterling called my family about a marriage arrangement, and I saw your name. I proposed the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, 88 times, because I was never going to lose you again.
88 times. She waited, through every rejection, through every silence, and I almost threw her away. For people who never loved me at all, I pulled her close and said nothing. Sometimes nothing is the only thing worth saying. Meanwhile, back in the city, things were falling apart for my sisters. They returned to the mansion on New Year's Eve to find the locks changed. The house was sold. Everything I owned, gone. For the first time, they realized I wasn't bluffing. I was really gone. They pooled their money to buy the mansion back. It cost them almost everything they had, but that was just the start. Grandfather revoked every privilege. Amelia was demoted to a dead-end subsidiary where people who once feared her now ignored her. Zoe lost her sponsorships, her funding, her connections. Without the sterling name behind them, they were just two women with impressive resumes and no leverage. They tried to call me, blocked. They tried to message me, blocked. They asked grandfather to let them apologize. He told them I wasn't interested. And somewhere in that empty mansion, with no one left to protect and no one left to blame, they finally looked at Caleb and saw what he really was. The cameras I'd left behind captured everything. Caleb mocking them behind their backs. Caleb laughing at how easy they were to fool. Caleb calling them useful idiots. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. They'd traded everything for a con man, and now they had to live with it. 3 months of peace. 3 months of sleeping through the night without nightmares. 3 months of Chloe's cooking, grandfather's visits, and a life so normal it almost felt fake. I should have known it wouldn't last. Chloe and I had gone back to the city to finalize some paperwork. We were sitting in a cafe when her phone rang. Her expression shifted from relaxed to stone in under a second.
There's a situation at Sterling Corp. Someone is causing a scene outside the building. Your grandfather is there.
That was all I needed to hear. We were in the car in 30 seconds. When we arrived, I saw him, Caleb, standing in front of Sterling Corp headquarters with a phone in his hand, live streaming to a crowd of about 50 people. Behind him, a banner he must have made himself. Sterling heir Ethan Sterling, abuser of the poor. He was crying. Of course he was crying. That's what he does best. He sobbed into the camera, telling everyone that I had lured him from his poor hometown with a scholarship just to use him, that my sisters were victims too, that the Sterling family was rotten from the inside. He showed bruises on his arms, some real, some who knows, and begged the public for help. And the crowd was buying it. Comments were flooding the stream. Rich people are monsters. Someone call the police. That poor boy. Caleb could sell fire to the sun, but then he crossed the line. He pointed at my grandfather, who had just stepped out of the building to see what the commotion was, and he said, "There he is, the old man who bought orphan girls to be child brides for his grandson. How sick do you have to be?" I watched grandfather's face go pale. His hand went to his chest, and in that moment, everything clicked. Clean heart, perfect checkup, no medical reason for a heart attack. It was never his heart, it was Caleb. In my last life, Caleb must have done something exactly like this. A public attack, a humiliation, something so vile it sent an old man's body into shock. Caleb didn't just ruin my life, he killed my grandfather. Get him to the hospital, now! Chloe had already called it in, military efficiency. An ambulance was there in 4 minutes. Grandfather was stabilized before we even reached the ER. The doctors said he was fine, just stress, high blood pressure spike, nothing permanent. This time, he survived, because this time, I was here. I sat in the hospital hallway, Chloe next to me. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, because I had been preparing for this moment since the day I was reborn.
Ethan, what do you need?
My laptop, it's time. I logged into my verified account, and I posted everything. Every single thing. The hidden camera footage of Caleb lying to Zoe about me threatening him, and the smirk he wore the second she turned the corner. The footage of Caleb bragging about stealing my design. The footage from after I left. Caleb calling my sisters useful idiots behind their backs, laughing about how easy they were to manipulate. Financial records showing I funded his high school, his college, his living expenses, every cent for 5 years. And the plagiarism evidence, timestamps, correspondence, the original sketches side by side with his submission. One post, everything. And the internet did what the internet does. Within an hour, Caleb's livestream comments flipped completely. The same people who were calling me a monster were now calling him one. He was biting the hand that fed him. This is disgusting. That man funded your entire life and you did this? The crowd outside Sterling Corp dispersed. The banner was torn down by strangers. By the end of the day, Caleb was arrested. Defamation, fraud, evidence tampering related to the plagiarism case. The police had been building a file on him since the drugging incident at the gala. My report from months ago was still active. This just gave them everything they needed.
It's done. He can't hurt you anymore.
It's not about me. He almost killed my grandfather. Again. And I almost let him.
But you didn't. Not this time.
A week later, I got a message from Amelia. She asked to meet, just once, just to talk. Zoe had sent a similar message an hour earlier, shorter, less composed. She had clearly been crying when she typed it. In my last life, I would have ignored them, or worse, I would have gone running back. But I wasn't that person anymore, and they weren't the people I wanted to punish. They were just 2 women who let a con man turn them into strangers. So I went, once. We met at a cafe near the old mansion. They looked smaller. Amelia's suit didn't fit the way it used to, like she'd lost weight. Zoe's eyes were red. They sat across from me, and for the first time in either of my lifetimes, neither of them had anything to say. So I spoke first. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore. Amelia's jaw tightened. She nodded once, slowly, like she was absorbing a blow she knew she deserved. Zoe tried to speak, but nothing came out. She just looked at me, with this expression I'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, not defiance. Regret. Pure, useless regret. I stood up, left some money on the table, and walked out. I didn't look back. Not because I was angry, because there was nothing left to look back at. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. I needed to say it out loud, so I could finally let go. A month later, Chloe and I were walking through the base. Same sycamore trees, same path. But something felt different. She was quieter than usual, kept glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking. You're being weird. What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong. Something's right, actually.
What?
We're having a baby.
What?
We're having a baby, Ethan.
I stood there like an idiot, just standing. The sun was coming through the trees and hitting her face, and she was laughing at me because I couldn't move. And then I laughed too. And then I couldn't stop laughing, and she was laughing. And 2 recruits walking past saluted us and looked very confused about why the commander's husband was crying and laughing at the same time. In my first life, I lost everything because I trusted the wrong people and ignored the one person who truly loved me. In this life, I chose differently, and that made all the difference.